became heteron, a word that means different. It was different than what? Well, it was different than what it always had been. It was different. It was other than. In fact, Matthew explains it this way. He was transfigured. Transfigured. And Matthew uses a Greek verb, metamorphothe. A metamorphosis took place. You know what that means, don't you? You think of that, a metamorphosis, you think of what creature? Butterfly. Because there's absolutely no way that you could assume, if you looked at what it was before it went into a cocoon and what it was when it came out, you would not connect the two. Because the metamorphosis is so total, so dramatic. Jesus' form, morphe, changed. His body changed. They had known him only as a human being. His body had been a body like the body of any human being. When the shepherds came to the manger, they saw a baby that looked like any other baby. When Mary picked up her baby, that baby looked like any other baby she had seen. When Joseph looked into the face of that little boy running around the carpenter shop in Nazareth, he looked like any other little boy that Joseph had ever seen. He had the same human characteristics and features that any boy has. And as he grew into youth in the age of 12, he's in the temple having questions and answers with the doctors, what they saw, even though he said he had to be about his father's business and was coming into the full awareness of his sonship, that they could see only a boy, only a 12-year-old boy. And that was the way it was when the disciples saw him. When they heard him teach, he spoke as a man. When they saw him eat, he ate as a man. When they saw him sleep, he slept as a man sleeps. He walked and talked and behaved as a man. His morphe, his form, his body was human. It was 100% human. It was what they were used to seeing. They knew there was kingdom power in him, and they knew that he had supernatural energy that came through him and was even delegated to them, but it was not visible in his physical form. He didn't go around with a halo over his head. I hate to foul up some medieval art, but he didn't. There was nothing about his humanness that would have distinguished him from any other man, other than I personally believe he was probably better looking and more compelling, more dramatic, as he had to have been the finest craftsmanship that the Father ever did, because it would have been untainted by sin and the fall. But all of a sudden, a metamorphosis takes place. And Matthew says his face shone like the sun. All of a sudden, his face was as blazing as a noonday sun. Now, that's a change. And then it says, if you look down at verse 29, his clothing became white and gleaming, became lukos, that's dazzling and brilliant, and exastraptone, to flash like lightning. This is coming from the inside. From the inside of what they were used to seeing as the morphe of Jesus, the human form, blazing light starts coming out. And his face, of course, is only his skin, and it's like the sun shining. And his skin, the rest of the body, shines through the garments as dazzling as lightning flashes. What is this telling us? This is God. This is the Shekinah of God. When God manifested himself in the Old Testament, he manifested himself as light, didn't he? As light. God is light, and in him is no darkness at all, John writes. And light is synonymous with eternal life. God has manifested his spirit life in light. Jesus had said, I am the light of the world, but it never had been seen before. And here was an incredible glimpse of eternal life. This is what eternal life looked like when it's translated into light. And it permeated through his transfigured body so that literally he's ablaze like a flame with the sun at its peak. In the Old Testament, the glory of God, you remember, appeared a number of times. The glory of God rested on Sinai, the blazing, fiery light of God. The glory of God showed up in the mountain when Moses, you remember, said, let me see your glory. And God veiled him a little bit and let his glory pass by, and the glory was so dazzling and brilliant that it got on the face of Moses. And in chapter 34 of Exodus, when he went down the mountain, his face was blazing with that reflected light. When the tabernacle was finished in the 40th chapter of Exodus, the glory of God descended out of heaven, came down, went over the tabernacle, and then went right into the Holy of Holies. And there was the symbol of the dwelling of God there as that light, that blazing light, went into the Holy of Holies. And when the time came to move the tabernacle, the light went up and led the people as a cloud of light in the day and as a pillar of fire of light at night. When the temple was finished in 1 Kings chapter 8, verses 10 and 11, it says the glory of God again came down into the Holy of Holies of the temple, God manifesting himself in blazing glory. God chose light as the way to reveal the essence of his spiritual eternality to man. Matthew 25:31, he's coming again in blazing glory and light, the same glory. Revelation chapter 1 shows him moving in his church in blazing glory. Revelation 19, he comes in this blazing glory. Revelation 21:23, there's so much glory coming out of Jesus Christ that heaven doesn't have any lights or any lamps because the Lamb himself is the light of heaven. The glorious light of the very essence of God's nature and the very essence of Christ and the very essence of the Spirit of God comes out of the jewel that is the New Jerusalem and refracts through all of the jewels that make up the perimeter of that city and spatters its light throughout the endless universe.